Hi, I'm Jia-Hau. In this video, I would like to talk about how I build a trend following strategy from NumPy and Pandas. After that, I will compare the result with two backtesting packages, which are VectorBT and Backtrader. So let's dive in. First, let's import the SQL alchemy to connect the database. And I will actually import the NumPy and Pandas to do the calculation. And matplotlib is just to plot in the result. And this config file is just easier for me to access the information of database. And this 3 line is just for plot to make the plot prettier. So I will use the SQL alchemist method like create engine to connect the database. Then I will use the Pandas method to read the SQL query to get the data for me. And then also load the data into the data frame. So here's the data looks like. So as you can see, the time is not in the index but in a variable here. So I will select the time as an index, and then I will plot the rest of the variable with time to see the trend in this observing time. I also choose the BTC as a target to see the performance of BTC. So you can see that the BTC get a very big enhancement in this observing time, but it actually got a big drop in the mid of the 2020. So after overviewing the BTC's price, I will store it into a price BTC variable. Then I also interested about its daily return. So in order to achieve that, I will create a pivot table which the index are variable and columns are symbol and the values are close. Then I will drop all the NAM value in a column. So which means that if there's any NAM value in any tokens, they're just gonna drop out. Then I will do the percentage change to calculate the daily return. Then I'll store all the information into this daily return variable. So this data frame, it shows us that there are only two VAC tokens that existed all the time in the observing period. So I will just choose to plot the BTC daily return. So as you can see, there's also a big drop in the mid of the 2020, which confirm our observing of the BTC price trend, right? So let's plot these two plot together. So the big drop of the daily return from here, it also reflects the drop of the price in this day. And we can see that if there's a apparent drop of or increase of the price, the volume also change abruptly. And from this curve, we can also see there's a trend. There's a growing trend in here. So we can actually use some like a simple trend following strategy to gain some profit from here. And now I will introduce this trend following strategy is called SMA Crossover, which is based on generating two smooth moving average price curve to get a trading signal. So the first line means that its rolling average period is shorter than the slow one. So when the fast line is closing above the slow one, the buy signal is created, and vice versa if the fast line is closing below the slow one, the sell signal is created. So in this notebook, I will use the period 10 days as a fast line and a period 20 as the slow one. So the period 50 just kind of like I try to use it as a stop loss criteria, but in this notebook I didn't use it. And after generating the two lines value, I will compare these two values. If the fast line is greater than the slow one, it gives me, I just store it 1 value to it, and if it's not, I just store the 0 to that day. Then I shift the binary value 1 day. Then through this method, I just subtracting the original one to the shift one, and then if the price change at that day, it will give me the plus signal, the 1 signal, which means it's a buying sign. And if it's a negative one, so it just gives us a selling sign. After getting the trading signals, it's time for us to trade. So here I create a NumPy array to store the position state, and I just iterate over the whole period. So when a signal is buying sign, I just change the state into 1. So and iterate until the signal change to the negative 1, and also the position right now at that state it's also in a buying state. I will change it back to the 0, which means I just sell the token. Now we can calculate the daily return and compare the daily return with the strategy return to see if our strategy is outperform the buy and hold strategy. So right now we can compare the result by plotting the signals. So from the plot we can see that the sell signal is created when the fast line is closing above the slow line, and the sell signal is created when the fast line is closing below the slow line. So the total profit after this observing period, we can see that if you choose to use the buy and hold strategy, your total profit is 95%. And if you use the trend following strategy introduced here, you will get a profit about 248%. Now let's see the performance of strategy return compared to the historical data. So the gray line is the strategy return, and the blue line is just buy and holding strategy return. So as you can see, most of the time the trend following strategy is outperform the buy and hold return. Next, I'm gonna use the backtesting package to confirm our result. Here I'm importing the VectorBT, and I'm using the method in it to get a buy and hold return. So the total profit is about 95%. So it's similar to the one we just got from our importing. So the value is just the same as what we got from the previous approach. Now I'm gonna use the a method in a VectorBT to let me get the fast line and slow line. So you can see that it just like this 4 line can give us the strategy. So we just calculating the fast line and slow line and give it the entry point, which is the buying signal. Then also give it an exit point, which is selling signal. Then we can, after implementing this strategy, we can see the result. It's the same as what we just got as well. So this VectorBT also provide a plotting method to let us to know the total performance of the trading. It not only gives us the trading historical data, it also gives us what's the profit and loss for each trade. So as you can see here, it gives us a big gain from this period. Next, I'm gonna introduce the Backtrader. Here is just exactly the same strategy implemented from Backtrader. We can use these 3 lines to add the SMA Crossover strategy. After implementing the strategy, you have to create an instance from Backtrader. Then this instance, you can add a method in it. And then we also need to set a cache, initial cache for each round. Then as our method before, we all in every trade. So we set a percentage to 100. Then this line shows us the initial value we just invested. And this line shows us the final one after running this method. So from these 2 values, you can see that it's totally different from the previous approaches. So let's see why it's so different. Remember the last big gain from here to this period? It actually doesn't execute the trade. So that's why we didn't get the big gain during this trading. So what happens? In order to answer this question, I have to print out every trade that executed. So I just revise the strategy a bit. So that means that I have to know what happened at each trade. So I basically just add a notify order to remind me if the trade is exactly executed, and if it's not, you cannot return it and cancel order. So after that, we just do the same thing to executing all the trading. In order to prevent the cancellation, I have to adjust the percentage to 95%. Then here's the outcome of our simulating. So we just run the method, and then you can show that it print us every trade and the price and the cost of the money. So that's what we mean as why the trading is failed. So as the price goes up, the cost of the money actually increase as well. So if the money is not enough to buy, it's gonna reject the trade. And after all the trade, it gives us the total profit is about 182%. So it's quite different compared to the previous 2 approaches. But I think it's a more realistic one. So you can see that we get the big gain in this trade back, right? Finally, I'm also introduce a buy and hold strategy to see if it performs similar to the result we just get previously. So yeah, as you can see, we just buy it and just hold it for whole period, and it gives us a total profit is about 95%. So it's pretty similar to the previous two approaches as well. And that's it. That's my introduction of this notebook. Thank you for your listening. And if you have any question, please comment below. Thanks.